started, and I've actually started recording because usually the best content is actually before the show starts.
And here's me picking my nose and...
Oh, no, don't worry, I will edit that out. But it's usually at the start of the show when the best kind of tidbits and the golden nuggets reveal itself. And then once you actually get started, sometimes they don't actually come back into play and back into it.
I'll set up straight now.
Thought I'd be cheeky and start recording. But kia ora koutou katoa e hoa mai, no mai, haere mai, ki te pāpātakaro or StayMe Always. Bring it to you organic, live and dynamic. So bring me your cups. I have this flash little, I don't think you can see it. It's a Basketball New Zealand drink bottle my nephew has left in my office. So there's my drink. But as usual, I always forget to tell the guests to...
I got mine.
Oh, awesome. Fantastic. That's cool. What I'm actually going to do also is I'm going to go live and stream it on YouTube at the same time. Not YouTube, sorry, Facebook at the same time. So hopefully if there's anyone out there that wants to ask Bryce here with some questions, then we can go live and I'll fire them away. But I'm privileged to have a really good friend of mine on the show today, Bryce Robbins. We met a couple of years ago. He is was a professional rugby player, has multiple experience within the industry, 20 years plus. He's a coach. He now lives overseas. You're a father. You know what? There's so many things to actually continue on about how I can edify you, but I'm sure you can do that for yourself. But thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Because I'm living in the land of the rising sun, minasan konnichiwa, hajimashite, Robbins Bryce desu. So I'm living in Japan, coaching here at the moment, been here, coming back and forth from New Zealand and Japan for the last 20 years. So I spend roughly 9 months of the year in Japan and 4 months in New Zealand, and absolutely love what I do. Been very blessed throughout those 20 years. Met so many amazing people during that time, both on and off the field. Had family, I've had businesses come and go, fails, successes, all of that. And I'm still here now, so a lot of lessons learned on the way, which has been great.
And look, what's great is obviously talking to Bryce, I've been able to get to know a bit more about your background, and as you said, in terms of being a rugby player, you've had your businesses, your failures and your successes. And this show, The Healing Well, is a great opportunity to be able to show everybody from all different backgrounds, all different cultures, and trying to connect from that well-being space, and hopefully being able to resonate with somebody out there in terms of your experience, what you're currently doing, what you have done, because we're all on a journey, and really about connecting with the right people, because everybody needs help along the way, no matter at what point in life that you are. And throughout our discussion today, now our convo that we're going to have, there'll be different things that I'm going to drop also in regards to what I've been doing. So look, why don't we start off with, you're in Japan at the moment, and you're coaching over there. How long have you been back in Japan for now?
Roughly 6 months to date, yeah. I actually moved everything back home, so I actually moved back to New Zealand after my last job down in Nagoya. And then, got the phone call to come back again, and so I jumped on, and here I am.
Fantastic. So tell everyone, whereabouts in NZ are you from?
I'm from Taranaki. I miss the place hard, especially in summer. The mountains there, the beautiful beaches, the New Zealand cafe culture. I really miss it because it's winter here at the moment, so it's very cold. And seeing everyone on I suppose social media posting photos at the beach and having barbecues, it's tough sometimes, but we do what we've got to do.
I've got a bit of a tan. I'm trying to show it off as much as sun is absolutely shining out there. It is hot and it's absolutely bad weather. So look, growing up in Taranaki, tell us a little bit about your background, a bit about your family, and what it was like growing up for you.
So born and raised on a farm. Up until I was about 16, and then my parents they bought into the public. They bought a pub, the local pub, and they did that for a long, probably 10 years after that. Both hardworking, working in the meatworks for years, cheese factory. I myself, that was my first job when I left school, or actually during school, I was working in the meatworks. So for me, that gave me a base to look back on, because they were very supportive of my career choice, being a rugby player, and allowed me, I suppose, time to go and do those extra trainings. But it also taught me the values of what I had when I became pro. So the worst day for me on the rugby field was better than the best day in the meatworks, if that makes sense, because you're getting up at 4:30 in the morning, starting work at 5, and you're going into like minus 20-degree chillers in the freezing works. I was a freezer rep for the start, and you're doing long days, very, very long physical days. And guys have been doing that for years, 20, 30 years. And I take my hat off to them for doing that. And that taught me a lot. So when I got to the training and stuff like that, I focused on what I needed to achieve and get out of that training to be better with my career choice. And I was fortunate enough to have some good coaching throughout that. Good opportunities came to me, but I took them. So it sort of led me down the path of a professional rugby player. But also, I made mistakes through my professional career as a young player with alcohol. I made a few errors. One in particular, a story I like to tell people is, what was it? The New Zealand Colts. The day before the trial, I got on the drinks with a friend who was leaving, and turned up the next day to the trial absolutely cut, hungover, and I couldn't trial for the first day as a 3-day camp, and so I ended up missing that team through my own fault. I didn't even give myself an opportunity to have a go at it, and was told years later that I had a good chance at that time because I'd been looked at, and so that even more, like a reflection of some errors and to not repeat them. So alcohol has been probably a part of my career the whole time, and there have been times where I have sort of failed again, and nothing too major, but just little reminders to control that sort of area of my life.
It sounds like, just going back to your childhood, your family life, it was very work ethic, hardworking, as you stated, and potentially good role models from your parents. Is that something that's really helped you to form kind of your progression into that professional rugby career? Because ultimately, some people come from a hardworking background, and that's actually driven them further to really want to succeed. Would you say that's been the case for you?
Absolutely, and I mean it's more so now because you've got two parents working now as the same as it was back then. But my parents they worked very hard, but they still did everything they could to get us to athletics, going away on those athletic Commonwealth Games events. There was 4 of us, so 2 older sisters and younger brother, so 4 of us all going to those events. My elder sister Renee, she was very good at her sports as well. So she played for I think the Flyers. I can't remember the name. The netball team. So she was and she had a kidney transplant as well. So to go through all that and still come out in a professional era herself was amazing. So getting the 4 kids into all their sports and supporting them whilst holding long working hour jobs, I take my hat off to my parents for that, and they also provided a loving environment for all of us. So as kids, as young, we're very close, very tight, and it's not to say we didn't have our problems as well, at home, we had those. But at the end of the day, we're still very, very close as a family.
Yeah. And, being that professional rugby player, what was it about rugby that intrigued you to want to actually turn it into a career?
Yeah, so the younger days it wasn't a professional career. My father was a player, In his time, it was all amateur. It wasn't until '95 when it switched over to being pro, and I was lucky I came sort of through the non-professional into the professional. So I got to see that, but very fortunate enough to have that opportunity. And I see sort of now you got kids coming out of high school straight into professionalism, maybe not working before that, and so that's the lifestyle that the professionals have is very good. They work hard for it, yes. They train hard for it, yes, and they do sacrifice time with family by being away. But on saying that too, you also get a lot of the good benefits out of it. You're looked after, you're paid well, you travel the world, which is great. Everything's sort of laid out for you in a professional way, hotels and great food and all that sort of stuff. So we have access to a lot of support from the NZRU. They've been very good in that area too. It's been growing. I suppose around this wellness stuff too, though, is another side of things which is growing in that industry, around player welfare. But also too, it's not just the players themselves, it's their families, which has always been a big part of the game. So the great thing about rugby is that you have your 15 players, but also their families are attached to that as well. And it's always been, even club level, you see the families all going to the club rooms after the games. You see the kids all playing on the hill in the mud and then going into the club rooms for their chips and their soft drinks, afterwards. So that area of the game is amazing as well. So there's a balance that sort of has to be there, but I think it's managed kind of well at the moment. Yeah.
So actually, that's a really good point that you brought up, and we've had professional rugby players on the show, Ruben Parkinson, and being in your position as a coach, what do you do to really support the welfare of your players in your team? Because like you said, especially here in New Zealand, rugby is our culture, it's our background, it's our backbone. Not entirely, but absolutely seen in guys as our backbone. And what comes along with it is the family. So, what do you do being that coach on the other side to really help their welfare?
Well, the first thing was my own journey to get myself into a position to as a heal people. I don't know. I had to heal myself first and have my own traumas sorted out, and have my own backyard sort of clean first, and then after that, I think it's just listening. People just want to be heard sometimes, and you don't have to necessarily give them advice, but just listen. And sometimes they'll come up with the answers themselves. When they're talking, it starts to dawn on them, actually, I know what I need to do. So, and then if they do need help, then I'll do what I can. Obviously, making sure, especially in Japan, what in my time here, I've always noticed that the players come in, they've automatically got 30 friends straight away because you've got the team. But the partners come here, they don't speak the language, they can't read or write any of them. It's very, very difficult for them. So I've always sort of focused on making sure that they're okay as well. So the partners are good, because the player goes home, and if he's got a partner who's unhappy, he won't stay here very long. But if she's happy, the kids are happy, they'll stay here a long time, which was, in my case, I'm divorced now, but I had, my wife and my children were born in Japan, and that they really enjoyed their time while they were here.
Actually, that's a good point. Looking at from that aspect, I suppose too, and living it and breathing it, and having and going through that journey yourself, it makes it a little bit easier to be able to help those other teammates that are actually coming on board into the team, because ultimately that's the advice that them as well as the teams. So in terms of that cultural side, because you're over there in a totally different world to New Zealand, and having to learn the language, having to integrate into the culture, knowing what you came from with New Zealand and our culture back here, how difficult was that? Or if it was it actually difficult in fact?
I loved it. Actually, my original plan was to come here for a year. This is way back. So when I first got here, there was Glenn Osborne and Ronnie Clark, the two Kiwis in our team, and they made my first year here so much fun. And that real family, those two themselves, they are really big on family. So they just brought me in and looked after me, and I just absolutely loved my time here and just ended up staying long term. Contracts usually are about 1 year, 2 year sort of deals. So, you know, after a year or after your second year, you start to stress a little bit about re-signing and that. And it wasn't until probably after my 10th year I started to relax. I was like, wow, obviously they like me here, so just relax on that, you know, just go with the flow.
Yeah. And what would you say the difficult areas were transitioning into that new culture? Kind of where did you find those?
Obviously, the language is something you need to embrace. Very similar to Māori back home though, with the vowels. So they find that the Kiwis' pronunciation of Japanese words is very good, and vice versa. So the Japanese can pronounce the New Zealand place names in that very well. And then just immersing yourself into it. I used to invite the players around for dinners. A lot of sign language going on, you know, at the start. A lot of laughs, and it's just getting and respecting their culture too, as you know, we hope people will do in our home country as well. This is their way. Some things are very frustrating for me here, very frustrating. But I'm like, this is the way they do it, and you know, don't try and change it. Otherwise, if I want it to be like New Zealand, I'll go back home. You know, like
What were those things that you found frustrating?
Just the time to get things done. It's all. A lot of people, it's funny, because a lot of people think it's so technologically advanced here. Yes, it is, but in terms of systems, so if you go to the banks and to go send money home, man, it used to take me half a day because paperwork, stamps, you've got everything's written down, and then they check every letter, and if it's the R looks like a P, they come back to you and they're like, is this an R or a P? And you're like, oh, it's an R, you know, things like that. And every week I'd send money home, and the same person, I'd see them at the bank, but nothing changed. The same process was done every single time. So whilst it was frustrating, it works, you know. It's organised chaos here. That's what I find, because there's so many people. You know, there's so many people living here. There's 120 odd million in the same sort of size as New Zealand. You imagine that. So the train system, everything's right on time, and there's people just packing in, but it's organised chaos, you know.
I remember travelling over to China, and I think everybody that experiences just trying to cross the road.
Yeah.
And actually trying to get from one side to the other, and all you see is tuk-tuks flying here and there, and cars and people going here, there, and everywhere. And exactly right, it's organised chaos, because not once was there, you know, a crash or anything. So, but like you say, it works. And actually, what is great about transitioning somewhere other than your home country, especially in a country like Japan, is it teaches you patience. And that's one part of my journey that I've been transitioning, because I don't have any patience whatsoever, and especially with my kids and my family, which sounds the worst, but it's so important when you can understand how to master a particular skill or an attribute of yours. It's about really identifying your flaws, which was a couple of my latest posts, was identifying your flaws and being able to actually master those flaws and work towards it. And for you, obviously, this would have been something that you've had to learn. So, you know, looking at patience, how did that actually help you to transition faster, or did it take you a bit longer because of the processes that were happening over there?
Yeah, you definitely learn patience and understanding. You still have the frustration involved with that, you know, with the patience, but over time it gets easier. Like a lot of things with hardship, you know, that patience. So obviously going through my divorce in the beginning was very tough, and then so I'm nearly 3 years afterwards, and it's waned, become easier to bear. And a lot of things that happen in my life now too, I look back on things and I'm like, yeah, I didn't need to react the way I did. So you look it through another lens, and sort of see it from different angles. It's the same with coaching too. That's what you're trying to look at, I suppose, games and that through different lenses, to try and find weaknesses or strengths in areas.
I think it's really important that you brought up the fact of viewing something in a different lens. I do often talk about senses and lenses, and if you know how to use and actually become in tune with your senses, you actually are more successful because your thought process is more natural and you're able to actually transition a lot easier, and then you don't have the outside influences. And I know for me, you know, I'm constantly reviewing how I do everything, how I see things, how I deal with my kids. Even just writing an email to someone, I always want to try and change the way that I come across, so then the other person has got a different perception of who I am as an individual. And what's really good here is that you can really identify, and what we just spoke about, identify as your flaws, to really focus on and become more in tune, so that you can actually become a better person, and a better, I suppose, for me, a better Jamie and a better Bryce, so to speak. And if we go back to what you were talking about earlier around alcohol, because that obviously is an area within the game that unfortunately is brought to the fore quite often in conversations when I'm talking with sports people, as kind of a dependency because of the, I suppose, the high stress levels that you end up going through. How did you find that throughout your career? Because obviously you did speak about it. And how did you, I suppose, learn from those challenges that you face with alcohol?
Yeah, I think it's on the whole too. I think it's in life in general, especially back home. People, you know, their jobs, stress, not knowing when the next paycheck's coming, or you know, paying the rent, or getting food for the kids and stuff like that. So across the whole, and I think people tend to turn to alcohol as a way to sort of block it, because that's what it does. And as you were just speaking about before, it's actually feeling those things and processing it. So that was the lesson I've actually probably learnt. It took me a long time to learn it, but I probably used alcohol as a way to, I suppose, suppress things, or to look for something that I didn't need, you know. And I got this new saying now, like, nothing good happens after midnight. So just enjoy that time with the people that I'm with, and then, you know, that's done, and go home and rest the body. Whereas before, I probably used to try and chase the fun, you know, like, when's the next party, where's the next party, which is a common theme now for the young ones back home too, sort of chasing things. It's like the best times normally had at the very beginning, when you're just having a couple of drinks and you're getting those conversations and yarns and a few laughs and jokes, you know, and then after that, I think it sort of becomes a blur, and that's when things sort of can go pear-shaped. And I probably learned that lesson pretty late, but I've learned that lesson. You know, every now and then you make the odd mistake, and it might go a bit longer than probably should have. But I'm learning those, you know, the main point of it is to know when I'm in that sort of situation, how to control that. And I sort of encourage, you know, people who are going through tough times to probably, especially when you go through a relationship breakup, or some hardship, don't go to the alcohol for an answer. You know, it's probably just sit with it first on your own. You know, feel it, and it hurts. You know, that whatever you're feeling at that time can sometimes really hurt, and feel it. And then if you have someone trusted you can talk to, maybe, you know, and for that person too, if you are that person that they come to, just listen. You don't have to give advice. You know, they just want to talk about whatever they're feeling, and so just listen to their advice, and listen to what they say. And, you know, obviously you can pick up from cues. If they're really in trouble, then you can reach out. If you don't know yourself, you know, you can reach out to other people who have expertise in that area.
Yeah, look, I'm really glad that you brought up those different areas in terms of how to cope with, you know, being in those real stressful situations, because I do exactly the same. I used to be the same. I'd pick up a glass of wine, and then all of a sudden, you know, three bottles later, you didn't even realise that you had drunk that much because you'd gone past that point. And yeah, nowadays I try not to go for the trusty drink, but you're right. It's about really healing. It's about healing and actually absorbing, actually taking in the hurt, because ultimately, once you've done that, you actually get to a point where it becomes easier, faster. But that's only from my own personal experience. I used to be very good at being able to shut out a lot of different things, from trauma just to arguments with my sister or my parents, and a lot longer than what it actually should have. And ultimately, all you have to do is just sit there and actually take it in, think about it, and then start talking to people to try and get another understanding from the other person's perspective, because a lot of the times you get stuck in your own head.
Yeah.
And you don't know how to get out.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing for a lot of especially when we're talking about here, the tane is the men. Sometimes they I don't know, a bit of pride or ego stops them from doing that too. No, you try and shed that ego and just think sometimes, feel it, and talk. It's okay. And I'm seeing that more now with the help of yourself and the wellness area that you're in. There's more opportunities for men to do that, which is good. So please speak up. It's important, not to bottle it.
Those males that really do find it difficult. Are there any other suggestions besides, speaking up that you can recommend for them to be able to look into?
To them themselves, I think you change your environment if you can. So you can't change the people around you, but you can change the people around you. So it's just if you people talking toxic things around you, just move away. Or even in your living environment, if you got a little bedroom, whatever, just make sure that's really clean all the time. Like keep that one space or that one area clean. If your room's clean, that'll help keep your mind clean. It's a feeling, it's an energy thing. So I've started becoming really big on and looking more into energy as well. So when you're sort of in a situation, you're talking to someone and you think to yourself, just because he's talking about so just feeling that and just sort of living with your trust your gut, and then those that are speaking the truth, like, wow, that's really good, I want to know more, and ask questions, and but definitely your environment around you. My circle's probably smaller now because I'm looking at different things. I've got a great mentor in the coaching side of things. He and I had some great conversations. He was a great mentor, not just from a rugby point of view, but also personal life. I've been under him for the last probably couple of years, 3 years. And so he's been a huge help for me. We have our moments where we butt heads a couple of times on certain things, and that's great, because what I really appreciate about that is that he actually gives me space to talk and hears me out, and then he'll come back with something, and I think about it too. I'm like, well, yeah, I didn't see it like that, So it's good having a mentor, someone you can talk to, and if they have experience, even better, in life.
And what sort of advice has your mentor given you over the years? Is there a couple of things that have really stuck in your mind that you apply on a daily basis that's been able to help you?
Coaching, definitely. He gives me little cues like just because everyone that knows me knows I've got a shocking memory. Like I forget things very, very easily. So he's helped me in that process of putting word association or picture association to things to help me remember. I know the boys, if they see this, they'll be cracking up laughing. They're like, yeah, we know you, shocker. So helping me on that side of things, plus the coaching, and then on the personal side of things, it's just, I suppose it's just that I can't quite say a specific thing, but I think it goes back to that he listens and gives advice where he sees, but the main thing is that he just, he listens to me, which is good. I have that I can share. Yeah.
Giving somebody the opportunity to be able to give your full opinion and actually own it as well. The last thing, somebody listening to you that just butts in every 5 minutes but then wants to give you their opinion. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, you don't say anything.
Yeah.
And it's people like that, though, you want to be careful of, because otherwise they become quite domineering, and then you find yourself doing the exact same thing to other people when, ultimately it's probably not what you like anyway to start with. And mentors, you don't actually have to pay for mentors. Mentors can be absolutely anybody. How did you come across your mentor?
Well, he actually picked me up and gave me my first coaching opportunity. So I was grateful for that, and that in that way too, I'm very, very blessed. A lot of players don't know when their last game is. It can happen through injury suddenly, or the contract finishes and they're done. Whereas I knew my last game, so I got to actually hang up my boots on my locker that day, and I took a photo. It's like the boots are hung up. So, very blessed to have that opportunity, and what I'm doing now too. So I hope I can continue to share what I have with others, but also too, I'm not sort of one to say you should be doing this. I'll just sit back, and if someone sees what I'm doing or wants to know more, then they can approach me and ask me, and I'm happy to share.
And we spoke earlier at the beginning of the show that you've had your businesses. So we also talked about a business space on the Healing Well, where we have some people just with what they're doing, how they came about, how they started. So do you want to give us a bit of some insights in terms of what you've done in the past and the trials?
Yeah, so my ex-wife and I, we opened up our first business, and my wife, she's amazing what she does in the wellness area as well. We opened up, the flotation tanks. Yeah, we didn't do things in halves. We did 2 businesses in 2 different countries. So this is our first time doing business, and we went big. We had one in Fukuoka, so south of Japan, a huge, beautiful, beautiful shop she designed, and we had one also in Auckland, up in Herne Bay there. Beautiful space, and I was fortunate enough to be on a very good contract during that time, so we weathered quite a big financial loss. A lot of lessons learned from that, but we were able to get through that, and not lose the house or whatever, But the one in Japan failed after 16 months. So lessons learned from that, like all the business stuff, we had no real idea about it. So that goes down. The Auckland one's still going, but I think she sold that business a couple of years ago. And then also too, we had another a friend come in and try our spa in Fukuoka, and he ended up opening one in Christchurch, and he's doing very well in that area too. So his spa down in Christchurch is doing very well. So that's the business side of things. We've had that, and I've just actually closed a business in New Zealand with a guy, and it was only after 6 months we were in business. It was a soft wash business, going around cleaning houses, and another lesson. And again, I'm fortunate enough. I'm very thankful that I have a job, and that was sort of like a side gig. And I'm looking for things like that all the time, trying to grow that other side. I like business, I like to be a part of business, and I'm still learning all those lessons. So, yeah.
Well, we keep learning. It doesn't matter how old we are. We're always going to continue to learn. And being an entrepreneur is something that I've always been, and it just runs through my veins with my family as well. But you're obviously an entrepreneur yourself. What were the lessons that you learnt quite quickly that maybe you can share with everybody?
I guess just do your research, and again, mentors around you, like that, people who have done that before, go to them and talk to them about, can they give you advice, or we just shot the bullet and just went into it hard. And amazing ideas and beautiful setup and people come, and it doesn't work like that. I just thought if I open it up, people come, and it doesn't work. Location, advertising, all that sort of stuff. Just a lot of different things to think about. So I suppose talking to the right people, getting some good advice, having a good plan. Again, it's tough. You put your trust in people to. I'm talking about staff, to have that same passion and mindset as you do, but in reality, it's not the case. They'll work in their job, sort of thing, and if they can get time off, they'll take the time off or things like that. So, whereas you're the owner, you're 24/7. So just, having that in your mind as well. Yeah. Just a lot of lessons.
And in terms of successes from your businesses, what are some of the aspects that were a success for you? Because ultimately, sometimes too, when you want to progress forward, number one, it is actually about taking the risk, but it's not actually throwing your all your eggs into one basket. But make sure that you do your due diligence, ask the right questions, but portion out your money. But what we also want to know is that it's going to work. So you want to hold on to that small grain, knowing that it is going to be successful. So, with the businesses that you have had, what were some of these successes you did have that came to fruition?
Well, the main thing was that, like you've just spoken about, I think it's just having that the knowledge to diversify and have different parts of it and don't throw all your eggs in. So you manage your, the last business I had, I actually managed it so that A, I could afford to do it, and B, I would get a return in some way. And I had a good partner too, so he, when the business dissolved, he paid my initial payment back, which was great. Good honesty from him. And we could possibly do something again in the future. It's just the circumstances around everything that's going on at the moment, sort of things didn't work. But the opportunity is there to grow and do something different, which is good. And then seeing those things, so seeing opportunities now with that business, I learned that you can start on one thing, but you've got to be able to grow, different limbs as well to diversify and expand. Not just having that one sort of idea, you should be able to do multiple and grow with what people demand is. So we learned that as well, which was quite good.
It's about having vision, which a lot of people don't really know how to see and project into the future, but then who actually does unless to see what is actually happening. But you're right, it is about diversification, it is about vision, but it's also connecting with people that that have been there and done that have been successful, but also talking to those people that maybe didn't succeed, but actually learning from their experiences and learning from their mistakes and their journey, so that when you face them yourself, you know exactly what to do.
Definitely.
Now, I know COVID has definitely thrown a spanner in the works for absolutely everybody. I know yourself, you came back to New Zealand when COVID hit. How long were you actually back home for when that happened? Were you relocated back overseas?
So I was home for 6 months.
For about 6 months, okay. And like in your experience, how has COVID affected you and your kind of well-being and your mental state, and what's been happening around you?
So this is a good one because I was actually hoping you asked because it hasn't affected me. I won't let it affect me. For me, everything is good. Like those external things I can't control, and I let it be. But I'm very content with everything I'm doing. I try to see everything I can through a positive future, moving forward. And I see us getting through all this. And I see growth, I see happiness, I see, this is what I'm choosing to let evolve around me, and that's what I'm feeling. So I refuse to let this pull me down in this space, because there are external things that I can't control. I can't go back to New Zealand at the moment and see my babies because of the mitigating factors of you've got to have this line up. So my 2 kids are in New Zealand. And I miss them greatly, but modern technology, you've got video calls and things, and they're teenagers at the moment anyway, so they don't want to borrow their dad. So but they know that dad loves them, and I know they love me, which is the main thing. And I just, if I can, if someone around me is down about it, then I'll try and lift them up if I can. Just be that energy. I sort of picture. I've got this one picture on my my Instagram it's got this one yellow person, and then there's a lot of people who are pale, and then that yellow starts to spread amongst them. So I want to be that person that's yellow, and sort of share the light with others around me if I can, you know. But again, it goes back to, like you're saying, to looking after your own well-being, your own self first, so you can project it.
Because I know for myself, with my previous role that I was in, I was constantly the go-to to be able to lift people up, to motivate people. I was the optimistic one, you know, having to try and shed the light to help them to become positive, become motivated, and actually have a better outlook on work as well as life. And to hear somebody like yourself and talking about you won't let that actually affect you, that's hard. Like even myself, as much as I'm like the happy one all the time that everyone goes to, you know, my down days, it is a struggle. So how did you get there? How did you actually get to the point? And this is something that I mentor and I coach through my role, is that you actually can't control everything. You can't control those external factors. It affects everybody all the time. So how did you be able to do that, to have that such a strong mindset?
I just came to that realization is, again, that I can't control it. So if I sit here and cry about not seeing my babies, what good is that going to do me here with what I'm doing? And what good is that going to do for others around me when they see, oh, this guy's walking in the room and he's all sad? It's like, people don't want to be around that energy, you know? And it's not faking it, I suppose. I'm trying to, I actually believe it, you know? I've got it in here now that this is what's going to happen for me. And what makes it easier is my ex-wife is amazing. You know, her and I have a good relationship with our kids. Everything's open, which is great. And, you know, they communicate with me all the time. And so that love, they know the love is there, even though we're apart. But again, with a lot of things too. So feel those emotions. Like, yeah, I miss them sometimes. Like, I might have a moment, I see a photo, I miss them. Let it go, and then keep going forward. You know, like go to a gym session or go and do something, have some. And another thing too, so I want to probably talk about too around that area. I spoke about, you know, the clean room stuff, but also your diet. You know, what you put into your body affects you. So please, just I know sometimes when you get down in that, you just want to go and reach out to that bad food and the drink. Sort of try and look after what goes into your body, even down to the water you drink and things like that. So that sort of helps that mindset of letting those things go, which is why I don't stay there.
And they're really important things that you actually internalize yourself and actually continually practice on a daily basis. It's like that prayer, it's like that meditation that you need to do on a daily basis, because you do have to condition, you do have to be able to get yourself into a rhythm, into a bit of a process. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Yeah. And also too for the young men over there too, back home, is, you know, when people talk about meditation, they kind of have this mindset of this one style or one or two styles. Meditation is many styles, and it can be whatever you want it to be. I use a shower meditation for myself, in the shower, and I just picture the water flushing all the negative energy out of me. You know what I mean? And that's my meditation. Right. Just things like that. You know, those momentum brushes you spoke about. Things like that. Things that you do. It could be going for a walk. It could be going to the beach. And getting amongst nature. There's so many different ways to do it. So you come up with your own and what works for you. It's really important too, and I haven't brought up momentum brushes for a while, and I do need to start talking about it a bit more, especially now that we've started the shows again. But it is really just finding things that kind of palpate your senses that will actually change the emotion. So it's not always doing things to make you feel happy. It's actually about things that will change your emotion to then help you get through to that next step. So, you know, even through a breakup, as much as no matter what you do, you're never going to get happy. You're never going to be able to shift that mindset. But what you can do is find something in that moment that can just briefly change that emotion, that can actually show you and tell your mindset that you can actually get through it. Yeah. Just the little things, for sure. Absolutely. Who is your superhero, or do you have a superhero?
for some reason, like my dad just popped into my head. You know, like he's just always been that figure I looked up to. He's such a strong character, and you know, it's funny too because you know, like if I'm looking back through rugby lens, there were times because he was a bit rough on the field, and so through the era when I was coming through my younger days, a lot of those guys that he actually did stuff to back then, it came back onto me. You know, so but as so hero, he'd be my hero, yeah.
What is your biggest fear?
Biggest fear.
Do you have
It's a tough one. Tough one. It's more. Yeah, that's a tough one. I couldn't answer that one.
I think for me, if I was to ask myself that, it's multiple things that come together, that group together. So, like, I never really thought about it, but not having a job actually became my biggest fear. Wow. So I left my role, and the unknown. So it's actually the unknown. It's the unknown, the biggest fear in the world, now that I think about it. So it's the unknown, not knowing when that next paycheck's actually going to come in, not knowing that how long will I have a roof over my kid's head? When will I be able to put food on the table? Now, it may come across that I'm over dramatising things, because I probably am. I am very blessed, and I know there's a lot more families out there that absolutely struggle. And I suppose for me, I really had to get myself in check quite quickly. I started a charitable trust, and I have a milk sponsor. And it wasn't until I started going to the depot, picking up the milk, and then in this one case, it was over Christmas and New Year's, and no community centre was open, no charity was open. I couldn't get hold of anybody, and I had 30 crates of milk, which equated to about 210 bottles of milk.
Wow.
And I was like, how am I going to get rid of this milk? And I'm like, there's families out there that are struggling. I have to get rid of this milk. So I put it on the Facebook page called Pay It Forward in Hamilton, and blow me down, I had so many people rocking over to my house, picking up, milk for their family. Some of them had 10 to 15 people on their family. We had families coming through telling me about, other family members and friends that they've got that are really struggling right now because of Christmas and with COVID. We had a student, they hadn't been paid out since before Christmas. They're still waiting for payments. And very quickly I realised, you know what, Jamie, you are absolutely blessed with the life that you've led, because there's so many people here that can't even put food on the table. So it was a really quick realisation to really put myself in my place and actually tell myself off quite quickly and slap myself on the hand that there's so many other people out there that are struggling, that are worse off than you. Yeah. But, it's something too that you have to go through yourself before you can actually make those changes. How do you fill your cup?
Eating good food. I enjoy, which I do miss New Zealand's cafe culture. The cafes in New Zealand are amazing. Good coffee and a nice little plate of food. That's my sort of go-to. So my days off today, I'll probably, if I can, have a nice coffee and a meal. Would be great. Do some work. That fills my cup. And then obviously family time is always great. But when you're overseas, it's a bit difficult. So I spoke to my kids last night, and they're good. So yeah, I'm full.
If you could change something about yourself, what would it be?
Probably just I've become a bit blasé, lazy sometimes with things. So I could probably step forward more and do more. I feel pretty chill about things. I actually like chilling. I like to spend in my own space, but sometimes I probably should step forward and do something and apply myself into different areas. So that's one thing I'd like to try and do more.
What really boils your pork
Oh, get me started on that one. Oh man, just this situation, the control that's going on at the moment.
And it's hard too because, when you're faced with something, again, like you said, you've got to have the right people to turn to. You've got to have the right people in your space because ultimately the situation can actually get worse, or it actually could become better depending upon your environment, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And for all those Tāne out there that watch the show, if you could give them a golden nugget that they could take away that they can apply to their life now, what would it be?
Golden nugget they can apply to their life, mate. You're beautiful. You're the man. Look within. You'll find the answers within yourself. You don't necessarily need other people to give you answers. And probably, you gotta be able to love yourself first, so then you can give that love to others.
Don't ever be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, look, thank you so much, Bryce, for being on the show. I'm going to touch base with you in about 3 to 6 months, and we're going to follow up to see what's happening with you and your space over there in Japan. If there's been any other great successes or any other businesses that you've actually started, because we do have tell me about it. We do have a business segment, and I'd love to chat further about your business side of things, because ultimately that's what all the Kiwis over here want to do. They want to start their own business that's sustainable, being in the online space especially, and any tips, any golden nuggets would be absolutely appreciated.
Yeah, there's multiple ways here. So there's investments as well. I'm into shares, crypto is another thing I've delved into. So just sort of spreading it out a bit, look into those things as well. So that's another area you could look into.
Yeah, actually I do have an interest in NFT.
Yeah, there you go.
Watch the space, everybody. I'm in a creative space where I'm in the process of designing. So watch the space. But hey, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate your time and your effort.
Thank you.
Up within the next 3 to 6 months, and you take care over there, and we'll be in contact.
Arigatou gozaimashita.
Arera. Take care.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye.